Hey guys, it's Core Ross and Welcome to 6 News. Today we are breaking down how the ranking system works in Rainbow Six Siege. And the catalyst for this video was this Reddit post that I thought just encompassed everything I've seen about the confusion about Rainbow Six Siege's ranking system and the misinformation that is being spread about it, because we got the first comment saying hidden MMR, a system nobody fully understands. And I've even seen people say that even Ubisoft doesn't know how it works. But the reality is it's one of the simplest systems, and hopefully after this video you will fully understand it. And it's also a bad thing that it is so simple, because I think it is very bad at judging skill. So let's jump in and we'll start with rank 1.0. This is the old Siege ranking system, but it's going to give us a really good foundation for how rank 2.0 works. And also I'll mention that I am making this video in September of 2023. If you're watching this years in the future, it's very possible that we're already on rank 3.0 at that point. But anyway, let's continue. So in ranked 1, we had a very simple setup. We had seasons where the rank would reset at the beginning of that season, and your rank and skill rating would be exactly the same thing. And this skill rating was based off one stat, and that was wins and losses. If you won a game, you went up in points. If you lost a game, you went down in points. And it used the true skill system made by Microsoft, which basically uses a fancy mathematical equation to judge how much points you go up for a win and how much you go down for a loss based on the enemy team's skill rating along with yours. So if they're a higher skilled team and you win against them, you get slightly more points than you would if it was a lower skilled team. And the gist of it is that rank 1.0 was very visually easy to understand, because you've seen the inner workings. You've seen your skill rating going up and down, and that was directly connected to your rank as well. So it's quite easy to tell that you were getting points for wins and points for losses, and sometimes that would vary a little bit depending on the other team's skill rating as well. But things like KD and personal performance had no impact on your rank. So let's upgrade now to rank 2.0, the current ranking system in Rainbow Six Siege. So this one splits up the skill rating from your rank. So I'm going to put in big bold letters, and this is going to pop up throughout the video. Your visual rank has no impact on matchmaking whatsoever in rank 2.0. It is purely visual. It does not influence anything. Then you have your skill rating. So this is exactly the same skill rating as in 1.0, but you'll notice there is no longer a reset to the skill rating now, and your visual rank is the only thing that resets, and that is just a visual thing, doesn't have any impact on matchmaking. And that's it. That's how complex rank 2.0 is. People seem to think it's this incredibly complex system, and it's not. It's 1.0's skill rating system with true skill. It works exactly the same way as it did before, but there's just no reset anymore, and your visual rank is now the only thing you see, which has no impact on matchmaking or any influence on this skill rating. However, the skill rating influences the visual rank. It will push you up the ranks quicker the higher your skill rating is, but the visual rank has no impact on the skill rating. And that's it. It's actually that simple. So now we'll move on to breaking down that Reddit post, and hopefully this is going to answer all your questions that you have about rank 2.0, and I'm also hoping that I do a half decent job of actually explaining this. So let's jump into the title of this post. I go up 40 elo and my friend goes up 70, yet we've only played games together. Now the reality here is that someone has played games outside of that friend group. Because the system is based simply on wins and losses, if you do play with your friend and you have a fresh account and both of you play exactly the same games together, then you're going to end up with exactly the same ranking, and that is it. However, because there is no skill reset every season now, it's quite possible that your friend played maybe 2 seasons ago and ended up winning a few extra games, or you played a couple of seasons ago and lost a couple of games, ended up pushing your skill ratings apart. I'll also point out that the person says ELO here when he talks about the points he's getting. ELO is for skill rating. Your visual rank is not connected to your skill rating at all. The points are pointless. They don't actually mean anything, and you're not getting ELO or losing ELO when you see the points go up or down on the ranking system. The hidden skill rating is going up and down, however, it is different. So in this example, the hidden elo is actually pushing these two friends closer and closer together the more games they play. because the higher skilled player, his friend, is actually getting less elo behind the scenes for going up against the teams that they're winning against. Whereas this guy is actually gaining slightly more elo because he's going up against higher skilled enemies. And Microsoft's true skill system behind the scenes is actually pushing these two people's skill rating closer and closer together the more games they play together. But of course, you don't visually see that, and that is a big problem with Rank 2.0. You don't see the inner workings of what's going on like you used to with 1.0. And the points you do see getting added and taken away are just purely visual. They don't actually impact anything going on behind the scenes whatsoever. They're just your visual progression through the ranks. Now, the points will slowly decrease that the game gives you for wins as you get closer and closer to where it thinks you should be sitting in the rank based on your skill. But the visual part has no impact on what's actually going on with the skill part behind the scenes. Now, this person also mentions that they have the same win-loss ratio as their friend, and of course this is the case because they've been playing together for the entirety of the season. However, because the skill rating is not reset anymore, they could have had a different win-loss ratio in a previous season, and that would then result in their skill ratings deviating from each other. They then also mention, my stats overall as a player are better. Why is he going up more elo than me? He also adds in that because he had a better rank last season, and then I've even got an ace in ranked. So let's break down those different parts. So stats are completely meaningless in ranked 1 and ranked 2, which is to me a terrible thing. I don't think it's a very good judge of skill because it's only taking one stat and using it for ranked, and that is your wins and your losses. You gain points for wins, you lose points for losses. You can have the highest KD, you can be the MVP, you can get aces every single round. You are getting exactly the same points as the worst performing player on your team. Because whether you win or lose is the only thing that impacts the ranking system. And my tip here is if you're a high KD player, the way to win games is to focus on the enemy player's best players. Because there's usually only, and I would say in Siege, 2 players that are really influential on both teams. If you can eliminate them rather than going after the easy kills, then you can win a lot more games. So try focusing rather than KD on winning, and that will help you in the ranking system, because that's all the ranking system cares about. Now let's break down this other thing, which seems to be something that is spreading out and people are getting really confused about, and that is it because he had a better rank last season? And let's bring up that big bold text, which is your visual rank has no impact on matchmaking in any way. It is purely visual. And that leads us now into the first comment. So this person says, hidden MMR, a system nobody fully understands. And I fully understand it. It's actually very simple. Like I say, it's just based on wins and losses. That's it. It's exactly the same as the 1.0 system. You just don't see it anymore. And that is it. It is just hidden, but exactly the same system as before. And it's so simple that it is just based on wins and losses, and that is it. And the only other big change is that it no longer resets every season now. So this comment then gets a reply from the original poster, which says, how did he get a higher MMR? Is it because he got a higher rank than me last season? Is it biased for people who got higher ranks last season? It seems impossible for me to play because it is unmotivating when I perform well, but the game still gives me low elo. It's biased. And then following up with a reply that says, yes, it's because he had a higher rank last season. Now this is really easy for you to test if you want to. Simply play the next season 1 game of ranked only. So you get that bottom of copper rank. Then if you play the next season, you will fly up to your previous rank you had before. This is because your skill rating hasn't changed because of 1 game. And I've done this before. I've played a season where I did 1 ranked game, ended up at the very bottom of copper, and then next season played a bunch of games, had a 50% win rate, and ended up at my usual ranking level. As your visual rank has no impact on your skill rating, and even more than that, it has no impact on the visual ranking you get next season as well, because all of that comes off the skill rating. The visual rank has no impact on anything at all. It is just purely visual. Then we have a comment from the OP saying, that sucks, everyone should get a fresh start, so it's fair, it should not be biased. And then we've got a follow-up comment that hits on this with some truth, which is good. So it's not biased if it's based on statistics. Now, it's just based on wins and losses, so I think that's not very good at actually judging skill. Then he also says, I wouldn't want to be matched with champions in the first week as a gold while they climb. This is true. I think the whole reset of skill is a terrible idea like we had in rank 1.0 because like if you take say big sports, right, you don't have all the teams playing each other, you have divisions so that hopefully you're going to have that skill levels all evened out so you end up with more exciting and closer and competitive games. It's not fun if you just had a league where the best team in the world was up against the worst teams in the world, because that would not be fun to watch or participate in. And this guy does drop a bit of truth, which is if you have a win rate of 1.0, so I'm saying a 50% win rate here, you end up at the exact same spot as the season prior, which is exactly the case. If you will just play games in ranked, you will end up leveling out at a rank which somewhat matches your skill rating. And then you could play one match the next season, end up at the bottom of copper, and then the next season after that, go ahead and play a bunch of rank games. You'll end up straight back up at that rank you had a couple of seasons back if you had a 50% win rate. Now there will be a little bit of deviation in here because the way TrueSkill calculates your MMR behind the scenes gives you more or less points towards your skill rating depending on the enemy team's skill rating as well. And that's not the visual points you're seeing getting added or taken off your visual rank. That is the hidden skill rating behind the scenes, which is just the same as it was in ranked 1.0. So if you have a hard time visualizing it, imagine ranked 1.0 where you would gain or lose points based on wins and losses, and that is still going on. You just don't see it anymore. The points you do see are just the visual ones, which mean nothing. Now the next comment is a great example of how people think the visual rank means something when it doesn't. So he says, no, because if a diamond player only decides to go into copper, then the next season they will have low RP being rank points, making them stay in copper. However, that is their visual rank only. It does not impact their skill rating. Because there's no skill rating reset, they are still considered to be a diamond skilled player by the system. They haven't lost enough games to actually reduce their skill rating whatsoever. And again, the rank that you see is purely visual. The points you see being added on and taken off are purely visual. They have no impact on your skill rating behind the scenes. Now we have another comment that I have no idea where this person's got any information. I think they might have just dreamt it up. If you go read the blog post on Rank 2.0, there is no mention of anything like this. So he says MMR is taken halfway from where you ended up last season to the baseline. And none of that is true. However, some of what he says next is true. Also, it's not hard to get a super low skill rating. Me and a group of friends went from high plat one season to around minus 1000 MMR the next just to see what it was like. And you can do this. Simply lose. Like if you're a 5-star, you just lose every single game, your skill rating will plummet and then you'll end up in the lower ranks. And 100% you can totally do this. It's also the same in quick match and standard because they also have their own ranking systems behind the scenes to do the skill based matchmaking, and you can just simply lose and you'll go down in the skill rating. Now we have a comment here, spitting truth, which is your friend has a higher hidden MMR, so a higher skill rating, and gives him more RP to get him to the rank the game wants him to be at quicker, which is basically true. And the main reason of the difference in skill ratings is the fact there is no reset anymore. So a couple of seasons ago, this guy probably just lost more games than his friend, maybe did some solo queuing or something like that. But what this comment doesn't explain is that if you play more ranked games together, your skill ratings will eventually pretty much match out. That's because this guy with a higher skill rating, his friend, is getting less skill points going towards his skill rating than him playing because he's actually lower skill. So the game's like, oh, you've just beaten these higher skill players. I'm going to give you more points than your friend is getting because you're actually showing that you can win those games. But of course, the original author is getting confused because he sees the visual points coming up for his rank and he's getting less points. So he feels like he's not catching his friend. Whereas reality behind the scenes, just like the old ranking system, you're actually catching up to your friend the more you play, and then that will eventually show up in your rank standing as well. But again, that rank is purely visual. So the points being added, the points taken off, purely visual. Doesn't impact the skill-based matchmaking in any way, and you're actually getting closer to your friend the more games you play, not further away. And then I had to highlight this comment because this one's nuts. So correct, one of the biggest problems with rank 2.0 in my opinion is if you get a higher rank once, one season, you're pretty much set for life in this game now. So like if I was to just get champion one season, let's say I played with a 5-stack, got champion, I'm not going to get champion next season if I solo queue. Like I'm going to end up right back down into silver. Like there is no way that just getting a high rank for one season is going to have you set for life. That is not how it works. And again, big bold letters, your visual rank has no impact whatsoever. And stop thinking of the visual rank as being impactful in any way, because it does not do anything whatsoever in the system. It is purely visual. And people seem to be just nuts about thinking that somehow it must impact it somehow. It doesn't do nothing. And then the OP is back saying, so basically I have to fight extremely hard this season just because I didn't bother to get past bronze last season. So it says that I got bronze last season, so I'm a bronze player. And it gives me 40 RP because my friend gold silver, plus it gives him 70 RP. So now I guess I have to grind out 40 RP per game and 30 per loss just to get to silver so I can get more RP next season. Thanks Ubisoft, you really are genius. So the big problem here is this guy, I would say, is not playing enough. If he plays more ranked games with his friend, he will end up actually getting the same rank as his friend. But what I'm seeing here is he only got to bronze last season. He probably didn't play a huge amount of games, and because of that, he's just not catching his friend. But this is the problem with rank 2.0. Because of it just being this visual representation that you see and not what's really going on behind the scenes, you lose motivation and you lose morale, and as such you play less and less and you just get stuck eternally in bronze. Whereas if he played a lot more with his friend, he would end up actually at the same rank as him because he'd end up with the same skill level, and then he would be probably in a much happier place. But the 2.0 system makes it so that it's very hard for him to see that he's going to get any kind of outcome that's positive from the end of it. I also think there's a very big problem right now with trackers as well, because people will go into a ranked game, bring up a tracker, see that their entire team is copper and the enemy team is champion. Or it could even be closer. They could be copper and their enemy team is gold, and they then lose all motivation and morale and end up losing the game because they think they're totally outmatched. Where the reality is that both teams have relatively similar skill ratings, which means they could actually win, but they lose the morale to do that. But it also doubles back to the fact that I think the skill-based matchmaking in ranked 1 and 2 is terrible because it's just based on wins and losses, so the actual skill of players is not determined whatsoever. So you can easily come up against a silver who's absolutely amazing and a platinum who's absolutely terrible. We then have another comment here that I think is worth hitting on. And this commenter says, I had the same issue gaining almost nothing and losing a crap load being trapped in bronze, but back in ranked 1 I would get gold. Now this to me just highlights the fact of how bad the old system was, because you played 10 placement matches that would give you a whole range of different skill level players on your team and the enemy team, and there was a very good chance you might end up winning about 50% of your games, and you would then end up in silver or gold right after those placement matches, which for a lot of people would have been far higher than they would have actually been able to attain if they started from the bottom and tried to work their way up. But this is also a weakness of rank 2.0, I believe, because I don't think copper and bronze should be a rank that any player gets stuck in. They should actually power through it, and then it gets real hard at like silver to gold. Because if it's going to be a system that is just a visual representation of your rank that is not connected to your skill level, then it should give you at least some progression to begin with to get you motivated and give you more morale to play. And hopefully then once you get into silver in that, it feels harder, even though the entire time it's given you really hard competitive opponents throughout the entire competitive playlist. But it's not how it works. And then the final comment we'll go over is another take on this. It says MMR drift at play right here. This is an interesting one to read. So if your friend is constantly a platinum player while you are constantly a silver player, Siege wants to get your friend back up to platinum to make his games more competitive, while you don't want to get there unless you earn it, you also aren't getting smoked in lobbies that are too high in rank for you. So let's break this down. So first of all, the visual rank has no impact on matchmaking whatsoever. So for example, if I was to jump into ranked right now and play one game in Copper, and then I go off and I play 1,000 games with a 50% win rate, the skill level of the players I was playing in that first game and the 1,000th game are the same skill level. What I'd also say is this comment is adding to that demoralization of players because it's saying, oh, there's no way you can catch up. Where it is just simply, if you play more games with your friend, you will end up at the same skill level, then you will end up at the same visual rank. And what's going to happen here with the original poster is he's going to get demoralized and think he can never catch up to his friend and that there's a bias against him in the system and he's just going to play less and less ranked games and get more and more bitter about it. Whereas if he just plays more with his friend, he'll actually catch up because the system is actually made so you can do that because you're going to get more skill points behind the scenes for playing with your friend who has a higher skill rating, and you're winning and losing against the same teams, you will actually catch him. Anyway guys, I hope I've done a decent job of explaining ranked in Siege for new and returning players and existing players, because there seems to be a lot of you posting on Reddit and stuff like that with these kind of questions and getting really confused, and everyone is just throwing around a ton of misinformation. Like I've said, there's literally people who have said that even Ubisoft doesn't know how the ranking system works, when it is extraordinarily simple, that it is actually too simple. Now I will add on a couple of notes here. So there is stuff that and probably will change in the future as well with rank 2. So first of all, rank 2 was seen as being too easy to rank up in. So platinum and above now has a difficulty multiplier that was added on a couple of seasons ago. That means that if you get into those ranks, it gets even harder to push higher up. Even if your skill rating is really high, it's going to actually slow your progression quite a lot. And a lot less people will end up in those higher ranks as a result. And that's the thing, the ranking system will get tweaked quite a lot over time, just like the old system was as well. And if you even remember, Rainbow Six Siege's rank system was in beta for many, many years before it actually went to become 1.0. And basically 1.0 was exactly what the beta was as well. So the ranking system in this game has always been slow to mature, and it's always had major issues with demoralizing players. Like in the previous system, you'd play your 10 placement matches and then you'd potentially stop playing because you get your highest rank after those placement matches. And now the new system makes you think that you're doing terrible, so you end up only playing 10 matches and maybe even less now. So there's a lot of issues with keeping people playing in the competitive mode, and it sucks because it should be a fun competitive mode with the skill ratings all kind of out in their own divisions, hopefully having really fun, exciting games like you see in sports with different divisions. But I don't think it's there because it's only based on wins and losses, and that unfortunately doesn't include personal performance in any way. And I'd love to figure out how you could get all of that sorted out, but right now, unfortunately, it is not in that state. Anyway guys, thanks for watching and I'll catch you next time.